Tonight's video is going to focus on population genetics and things that can alter the genetics of the population as a whole over time, not just one individual. So keeping that in mind, we're going to be looking at a lot of different things that can influence or drive evolution other than natural selection. So our focus so far has been selection, whether that's natural or artificial. And while that can drive evolution, there are also other things that can help drive evolution and over time change the population. Mutation is a huge influence in evolution. It is it's a random process, and it's going to contribute to evolution. The main way it's going to contribute to evolution is the fact that mutations cause variation, right? A mutation, our general definition for a mutation, is that it's going to be a change in the DNA. And so if I change the DNA, I am most likely going to change the phenotype. I can change the phenotype. So these mutations that cause these changes in the DNA can then cause a change in the phenotype, and that phenotype could be better suited to the environment. Okay? So mutations are constant, so they're happening all the time, and we can't control them. We cannot control whether we can't cause a mutation to happen, nor, and kind of dictate what kind of mutation we need to get a change in a phenotype, okay? Nor can we prevent them. So mutations can come from errors in mitosis and meiosis. Remember, mitosis is somatic cell division and making our exact copies. Meiosis is the formation of our gametes, right, where we can get non-disjunction mutations, a triplet situation or a monosomy situation. Environmental damage can cause mutations. You can see in the picture here the UV light causing the mutation in the DNA that could eventually change the phenotype of the organism. So the mutation can cause a variety of things to occur, right? It could change the amino acid sequence, and that maybe has an effect, maybe doesn't have an effect. But that could lead to a change in protein, right? Which could lead to a change in structure, depending upon what the protein did. So that could lead to a change in structure. A change in structure then could lead to a change in function. So one mutation could have a trickle-down effect. And if we get to that point where it changes the phenotype, it could affect their fitness. And remember, fitness is the ability of the organism to survive and reproduce, to pass on its DNA. So if it's better suited to the environment, then now that mutation may start to stay in the population because it's getting passed on to future generations. If it's not well suited for the environment, then it's going to affect their fitness negatively, and it shouldn't continue to get passed on. So genetic drift affects small populations, and it's a non-selective process. Okay, so non-selective, so we're not necessarily talking about the ones that are best suited or the ones that are doing the best, right? So non-selective, and it's going to impact small populations. And we're going to focus on two examples of these that are both caused from chance events. These are hopefully examples that you remember from your freshman year. Okay, but founder effect and bottleneck effect are both caused from chance events. So founder effect is when a small group leaves and starts a new colony. Okay, you can see that happening in this in the top picture here with the birds. Right, this small group left to start a particular colony. None of the yellow ones went. Therefore, that yellow allele is going to be phased out of the population very quickly. So for founder effect to occur, I need to start a brand new population, and I'm going to do it with just a few individuals. So what that means is that my gene pool is going to be very small because I shrank it. I didn't take everybody with me, so my gene pool shrank since I'm starting my new population with just a few individuals. So depending upon who these individuals are, you could have a higher incidence of a rare disorder. Maybe it's a genetic disorder that's passed on through families, and the families all these people that are related to one another are who went and formed the new population. So now that allele could be in a higher frequency than you would expect to see. You may possibly have some alleles not go at all, right? So alleles could be completely eliminated by taking this small population and starting a new one. Or you could see things go up in frequency that wouldn't normally be that high up in frequency. It'll skew the gene pool. Okay? So by decreasing certain alleles, right, and increasing the frequency of others, you're going to skew the gene pool of the new population. Okay? This impacts humans, not just animals, right? Human populations that'll start from small groups of colonists. Okay? The colonization of the New World started that way. Our other example here is bottleneck. Bottleneck effect happens when some event has happened, usually some kind of disaster, something that isn't, again, remember this is an example of genetic drift, so it's a non-selective situation. This is a flood, a fire, where it doesn't matter if you're the alpha male, you still could be, succumb to the flood. Okay? So some factor, usually a disaster, reduces the population to a small number. So very, very quickly, the population will get reduced to a small number, and then the population will recover, and it will expand again. The problem is I lost a lot of variation by whatever event that was, by the famine, by the drought, by the flood, by the deforestation. I lose the variation due to this chance event. So once again, I could be losing alleles from the gene pool, and not necessarily due to fitness, not because the best suited organisms, weren't surviving, they were being selected against. Okay? And so we continue to narrow the gene pool. The cheetah is down here because they're a prime example of that. Okay? Cheetah numbers were decimated very quickly. Okay? And so the cheetah gene pool is very, very small. So any disorders, any problems, they don't really get phased out of the gene pool. And there's no real change happening in the gene pool. There's very little diversity. So anything that comes along that could impact the cheetah population is not just impacting a few of them. They're all susceptible. So in addition to genetic drift, we also have gene flow. Genetic drift and gene flow are different. Genetic drift is the drifting of the genes because we're losing alleles or high, other alleles that are rare alleles that shouldn't really be in high frequency or being in high frequency. This is actual migration, and gene flow is actual movement of genes from one population to another. So we've got the movement of the individuals in and out of the population. And as the individuals move in and out of the population, then you're going to see alleles move in and out of the population. You see examples happen of this with insects and plants, seed and pollen distribution, right? You see over here with the insect, with the bee and the flower. So the insect, the bee, is pollinating and distributing the pollen for the various flowers. So it's helping to mix the genes up. It's physically moving alleles from one place to another. Okay? Animal migration sees that as well. We can see over here on the right with the deer, we had two separate deer populations that were separated by a geographic barrier, but there happens to be a pass in the middle. And so some of the deer have moved over to some of the western deer have moved to the eastern deer population. And now they're going to contribute to that gene pool, okay, where this western deer population may have had different gene frequencies than this eastern deer population. You can see it just in color that there's different gene frequency. And so by having some of the genes flow into the other population, it can alter allele frequencies and mix the genetics across the regions. And what that will do over time is it will eventually decrease our difference between the populations. The populations will start to become more and more similar as we start to mix those alleles in more and more. Okay, so this is it. Again, we're going to be we're going to be practicing a lot of open-ended and writing and talking and using this vocabulary appropriately so that we can apply it in various situations. Okay? But so we'll be working with other things that can help drive evolution other than selection in class.